Hi everyone, good afternoon and welcome to Turn Digi. We have had some great speakers today. We're in our last session of the day, and we have Irina Nica talking. We have Chris Green, Victoria, and Lily Dedman. So we have these great speakers sharing actionable insights and tips. I'm SEO Joe Blocks. I set up this event Turn Digi. We're all going through some very, I would say, unprecedented and difficult times. And it's particularly the case when you are self employed, like myself and 12 of the speakers here today. We want to have a platform where we can promote ourselves in a obviously non-profiteering way, but to be able to continue to work, it's important mentally as well as financially. And Turn Digi, we've had some great speakers take part. We've had a lot of people viewing, and I welcome you all to come back and ask questions in the chat. Irina will be here to answer them. And yeah, I will pass over to Irina. Thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. And before we go into all of the nitty-gritty of link building reporting, I just want to say once again, thank you, Joe, for putting this event together, for all of the work that you put in to make this happen and have so many speakers and so many great topics today. I think until we can all return to our more usual normal, where we can, have a proper conference and get together and see each other live, this is the best that we have, and we just want to thank you again for making this happen.
Oh, great. Well, thank you, Rena. And it was really fun. Actually, Rena came over here 3 years ago to Barcelona to do some remote working, and I can't believe it was 3 years ago. Hopefully, you can come again some other time. We have a bigger apartment now, so you can come
Well,
stay.
I was actually hoping this summer, but let's see how things go. I'm obviously always happy to come visit you, and Barcelona is a wonderful city. So yeah, and obviously we turned the invitation. I have a spare room as well in Dublin. So
Thank you very much. Well, I'll leave it. I'll pass it over to Irina. Thank you.
yeah, well, as Joe said, I'm going to be talking today about measuring link building and reporting on those results. I've been working as a senior marketing manager at HubSpot for the past almost 3.5 years. During this time, I've been working on something that we call product awareness. So we try to, get our products, whether it's like the CRM hub or the marketing hub, in front of a bigger and bigger audience. And the way I take part in the team is that I do I use a lot of link building tactics, I guess, or traditional link building tactics to get that awareness, whether that's by getting our product pages to rank better and be more visible in search results, to getting more press mentions and influencers engaged with our product, and so on. On top of that, this year I've been super lucky to be part of the European Search Awards as a judge, and I'm one of the head judges at the Global Search Awards. And prior to this role at HubSpot, I've been the marketing manager of a tool called SEO Monitor. So that's a bit about myself, and I guess about why I'm talking about link building and reporting today. And before we get into the nitty-gritty of the actual reporting, I just want to spend 1 minute on talking about why measuring and reporting is important. As I've said, I've been doing this for about 3 years at HubSpot, and probably the biggest lesson that I've learned through this process is that measuring and reporting and being thorough and speaking in a way that's very relevant to your audience, whether that's your manager or the CMO or the CEO or your client, is probably as important as the actual job link building process that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So as you guys probably already know, if you're into the process of link building, or if you're working on an agency client side, or you're just kind of thinking about starting a link building campaign, just remember that this is a very complex process. And one of the things that you will encounter, especially in today's link building tactics, is that it involves many teams and resources. And in order to get access, I have to get used to this slide. So what I meant to say is that in order to get access to the necessary resources, whether that is budget, development resources, that you want to work with like a specific, maybe like PR agency, or you want to involve the blogging team, you need to convince your boss or whoever, like your client, whoever is responsible for allocating those resources, that the work that you do has a positive impact on the company, and that's important that they invest in it. And in order to convince your boss or your client to do that, you will realize very quickly that reporting is the most impactful tool that you'll have to get things done. The better you are at reporting it and at measuring and estimating the results of your link building campaigns, the more likely you are to obtain the necessary resources to get your job done. Now, just to summarize on why measuring is important, I just want to say that once you figure out reporting, you'll be able to, as I said earlier, get buy-in from the people that decide on the resources or on the budget. You'll be able to engage other teams to help with your campaign, whether that's the blogging team, the PR team, dev team, or even the wider SEO team if you work in a really big company. But most important, I guess, for myself personally, once I started like being a lot better at reporting and showing the results of my work, I've been feeling a lot more positive in my work, and I've noticed with other people that have experienced the same things, that they've been able to show their results and grow in their careers. So I guess if you're an individual contributor, just like myself, you're going to find this process very, very useful in your career going forward. Now, this process of measuring and reporting on link building is very challenging. One of the reasons that is very challenging nowadays is because we have probably, for better or for worse, so many tools that we can use to report on. Sometimes it's a blessing, but sometimes it's a curse, because it's sometimes difficult to decide on which are the metrics that are most important that you want to include in your report. Now, the second tricky part about this whole thing is that the easiest metrics that you can include in your report, such as the domain authority or the domain rating of the backlinks that you gained, or the number of backlinks or referring domains that you gained, are also some of the metrics that are least important for stakeholders. Now, it's still important for you personally to keep an eye on these metrics in order to understand whether or not your campaign is going in the right direction from, I guess, an SEO perspective. But for a CMO or a CEO or any C-level suit in your company or at your clients, domain authority is not going to be a metric that is going to convince them, okay, I'm going to invest a lot in your future link building campaigns. Unless, of course, they're very into the SEO weeds, and that really matters to them. But in most cases, I find that stakeholders want to hear about other things that are more tied to the bottom line metrics that they typically measure. Which brings me to my next point, and that is that tying link building results to the bottom line results of the company is very important because it's going to attract the attention of the stakeholders, but it's also oftentimes very challenging. Fortunately, it's not impossible, but it's something that once you start trying to move past the typical, let's say, metrics we use in link building, then you're going to find it more challenging. But try to work through those challenges and involve other teams that can help you figure things out, because it's going to pay off at the end. And lastly, the last challenge that I think I've been finding in my own process here is that different stakeholders want to hear about different things. And sometimes as an individual contributor, it can be challenging to decide which metric is the best, or which metrics are most important. Like my SEO manager might want to hear about SEO related metrics. and then the director of acquisition might be interested in other metrics, and then the CMO is interested in other metrics, and so on. The higher you go up on the ladder, the more different the metrics are going to be. What I found to be useful is to try to be as close as possible to metrics that are relevant and are easy to understand for most people in your company. Conversions, traffic, revenue, these are words that are relevant and relatable, I guess, to every manager in your company or at your client. And lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about what I think is a successful framework to rely on when you measure and report on the impact of link building. And I want to start by quoting a very interesting report that ERA, the UK agency, has launched very recently. They've interviewed like lots of marketers and SEO specialists on lots of things related to link building. And one of the questions that they asked was, what is the KPI that you use most often to measure the effectiveness of your link building campaigns? And as you can see from this graph, the results are pretty much like a mixed bag. You can find very SEO specific metrics like rankings to conversions, referral traffic generated by the links that you placed, and so on. To me, this says one thing. It says that link building is such a complex process, and people have very different ways of measuring its effectiveness, which ultimately means that there is no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to reporting and measuring. Ultimately, you will need to create your own report that works for your company or your agency, and the metrics that you will ultimately choose will depend on what are the expectations and what are the things that your stakeholders want to achieve. So for that, I'm not going to give necessarily a recipe here, but rather a few tips that I found to be useful in my own reporting. First of all, put yourself in your boss's shoes. As maybe like sometimes tacky as it sounds, it's really important to just ask yourself some very basic questions, such as like, what matters at the end of the day for your manager or your client? What are their pain points? And most important, what are the metrics that they follow on a daily basis? As I said earlier, things like traffic, conversions, revenue, these are words that are relatable to mostly any manager. But when you put yourself in your boss's shoes, like those, the answer to this question might be even more obvious. And this should be like the basis of where you start building your report. I wanted to also give you an example of one way that I use link building reporting with some of my managers. For example, when I build, when I obtain mentions of HubSpot's products in articles that rank in the top 10, top 20, or top 50 for a set of keywords that we are interested in, then with every new mention, I consider that our visibility in the SERP, on a third-party websites kind of increases. And over time, I kind of measure that visibility. So the link building work that I do at the end of the day affects our brand awareness. And this is something that is very interesting for some of the managers that I work with. I try to report on this because it's something that's very relatable for them, and they can also like appreciate more the value of mine and my team's work. Second of all, I think it's very important. I used to struggle a lot with this in the beginning. I used to worry a lot about the format. In the end, it just matters if you focus on the right metrics. Whether you use like complex tools like Google Data Studio or just a simple spreadsheet, do whatever works for you, because and use the metrics that are relevant to your stakeholders and to your company. That said, the data has to be meaningful. And as I said before, always make sure that you tie the results of link building to bottom line results. Another way that you could potentially report on link building is not only just showing the visibility that you gain for a specific set of keywords, but a visibility that you gain on different levels of the buyer's journey. This is another way that you can show the impact of link building on brand awareness. And lastly, the last tip that I have, I know I'm like super out of time, and I apologize for it. I'm going to close off after this, is always try to tell a compelling story, even when that story isn't about your best month. It's very important that you report consistently and very transparently about your results. You don't have to make reporting some sort of a success theater, or where you only speak about the great moments and the great wins you had every month, but it's also important to talk about the failures and, most importantly, the lessons that you learned from those failures and how you're going to move forward from those lessons. As I said before, there is no perfect way to do it. There is no solution that fits all. The various ways in which both agencies and in-house specialists report on link building just proves how complex this process is. So just use the framework that I've suggested to build a system of reporting and measuring link building that works for you. Thank you very much for listening. I know I'm a bit out of time, Joe, but I just wanted to share all of the things that have been meaningful and interesting for me in the past 3 years. Hope these have been useful for you as well.
Yes, it has been. Thank you very much. And can you see your screen and can you see me as well?
Yeah, I'm just going to stop sharing the screen now.
I just want to say, yes, very interesting presentation. I did have a question for you. And if anyone else has some questions, please write in the chat. So I wanted to ask around link building, how you can easily relate the links back to the bottom line. So, for example, what if conversion did not come specifically from that referral? Let's say you're doing blogger outreach or you're doing an event, and then somebody comes direct to your site. How do you link that back to the link building?
So I love this question, because when I kind of first started, I guess, doing link building, I think one of my personal ambitions was to kind of try to see, like the direct impact, and try to kind of drill down everything into the direct impact, but and see, like how many conversions have been coming from these links that we gained, or how much referral traffic, and so on. The reality is that most of the times, especially if you're building links to money making pages, such as product pages or lead gen pages, the conversions are not going to happen as directly or immediately. Like, people are kind of shopping around. Like, they might discover your website through the links that you build, but they might not buy then and there, or and that's not going to you're not going to see a massive amount of conversions coming directly. I think what you need to do is explain the situation, explain to the stakeholders that what is the buyer journey process, and what is the actual purpose of those links, and try not focus them and make them worry too much about the direct conversions.
Okay, so would you maybe recommend, and I'll just also bring in actually Chris as well into this. Hello, Chris. Would you also recommend maybe using a brand monitoring tool to see maybe how much your mentions have increased?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think that's probably one of the more ideal ways in which I would recommend, especially if your link building campaign is at the end of the day a brand awareness campaign, right? Even if the end result might be, get some sort of increase in your SEO performance, you also get mentions in the Daily Mirror or the Independent, or I don't know, whatever other publication. So the result is actually much more impactful at a brand level. So yeah, totally recommend that. That's, I guess, the bottom line of my presentation. Don't rely solely on classical link building metrics and link building measuring tools, but try to go a little bit beyond that and measure brand awareness.
Okay, great. Thank you, Irina. And Irina works at HubSpot, and I've been using HubSpot first time to send out emails to everyone. It is the free version, so it does have the HubSpot little brand, but I think that's fine. Your staff are great, Irina. They're always really quick to reply. Excellent customer support. So yeah, thanks for recommending HubSpot.
Well, I'm really glad it helped. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. You're more than welcome to stay on while Chris will get into his presentation, or you can jump off if you have lots of things to do. Totally understand. So thank you very much, Irina, for being with us, and I hope to see you in person in Barcelona soon.
Likewise. Thanks again for the invitation, Joe. Enjoy the rest of the day, guys. Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Hello, Chris, and welcome.
Welcome. How are you?
I'm good. What is that? Is that a microphone? It does look like an orange.
I've been told I need to hold it close to my mouth, so I'm not like tucking into anything. This is a microphone. But yeah, well, I'm good.
Great. Well, you can, when you're ready, you can share your slides. In the meantime, I will do a little bit of intro about Chris. And hello, Steve, Mariette, and Hill Web Creations. And let me just bring that in. And anyone else that is joining, but we can't see you because you don't have a Google account, which is totally fine, of course. So let me just, 1 second. So Chris, actually, I met Chris a few years ago. You spoke at Search London, and then you were doing, yeah, quite a few times, 2 or 3 times, and you were talking about some of the, I think the rank tracking, that was a great one when you were at your last company.
Oh yeah, the hourly rank tracking, our mad science experiments.
That was really, really good. And now you are the head of Footprint Digital, and Chris is going to be talking about the SERP Whisperer. So he's going to show you how to look at the keyword searches around their niche to determine what Google thinks people want to help you. Sorry, what Google thinks people want to help you better plan how to select those target keywords for your campaign. And Chris has been doing a lot of research around this. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Chris, who will talk about the SERP Whisperer.
Great. Can you see, is my screen all present and correct?
It is all beautiful. Ooh.
Lovely. Sorry, you got a sneak peek there.
Cool. Myself then.
So I'm gonna have to motor through this a little bit, so I might be pushing on the time too much, but hope you won't be stood there with a sheep crook. I'll be fine, don't worry. So that's me. You don't need to know about that. So I am an SEO though, as are a lot of people tuning into this, and I think as an SEO, one of the things I'm really great at is overcomplicating things. I think we all are, and this is the largest Rubik's Cube I could find, which is slightly maddening. But what I'm kind of imploring us to do as SEOs is to, well, take a step back, because very often the answer for what it is we're looking for is right in front of us. And the kind of the premise of this whole kind of talk really is we spend all of our time talking to Google. You know, we give it commands or queries, it gives us results back. But what I'm saying is if you listen extra carefully, it's actually whispering as well. It's giving you more information than maybe you're asking for. So what this whole kind of talk is, and what I want you to take away from this, is learning how to listen to the SERPs better and then ultimately make far better decisions from them. And actually, when we talk about SERPs and all that, it's all about intent. And the last time I delivered this, I actually had a round of applause, which was surprising because this is a terrible pun. But it is all focusing on the intent of the searcher. It's about knowing how to best match the customer to the product or service or content that you are providing. But how do we know the intent? And there's a couple of ways, you know, a lot of people would like to think it's intuition. Sometimes there are portions of guesswork. But I'd say that we can learn enough from what Google shows us now that we don't need either of these things necessarily. We can actually find out the answer. And that is by asking the SERPs. So let's do a real straightforward one. Let's go for blue trainers. Type in blue trainers. These are your results. You get your shopping, you get your image carousel, lots of sites selling blue trainers. That's pretty straightforward, right? That's an easy one. And I would argue that a lot of queries that you may type into Google, you can kind of glance at the search results and you can say, I know what somebody looking at these results should do or will likely do next. But is it always that easy? I'd argue not. Let's look at brow wax. Not necessarily one from my own personal kind of search history, but something that I've looked at quite a lot over the last 4 or 5 years. So we search for brow wax and immediately we start to see the intent feels a bit split. So we get some products at the top. We also get a local pack. And what this effectively is showing you is this is the difference between buying wax for brows or for those who want to have their brows waxed, which certainly to the uninitiated, that won't be immediately apparent. But when you actually run a search for either of these, you can see that the results are, quite different. Brow waxing is quite clearly a term that Google believes people want or need to visit someone within that local area, which makes sense. I have no idea why that result is where it is, but that's not important. So from a research perspective, however, the difference between brow wax and brow waxing is 3 letters. And it's very, very easy to miss or overlook or misunderstand, particularly in my case. But why does this matter? Why does it matter? Well, we try and put this onto a product page for a website, for example. This page will not rank for brow waxing, or not anymore anyway. So if you're kind of selecting your key terms, knowing the difference between those two is really, really critical. And the SERPs will show you that, these are 2 clearly different terms. So if we move to something a bit more broader, let's just look for drains, big, generic, very hard to identify what someone necessarily wants for that. And as such, the search that you're kind of given is you've got Google Ads, you've got a local box, but you've also got some shopping. You can buy parts of drains. The shopping makes sense, but the local isn't immediately so, because there's nothing within the query to necessarily indicate that this is a local search. But when you scroll further down that page, you can see that the rest are service pages. These are businesses that are either based within this local area or have pages that target that explicitly. And that kind of tells you, this might be a big, generic, difficult term, but even if you were a national site writing about drains, you'd struggle to rank in these SERPs, even if you were more authoritative, because the intent is local, even if the query intention that's not explicit in that, which is a big kind of point for this process. But how do we frame this keyword selection process? Because it's difficult at the best of times without me overcomplicating it with these examples. Well, one of the ways that I kind of really encourage people to do, if at a small scale to start with, is think of it in terms of your user journey, progressing through the different stages. And for that, let's turn to the trusty marketing funnel. It looks a bit tired, maybe overworn as a concept, but it'll do for this. So let's look at the start of the funnel. Let's stay with drains. And then the first search, who's responsible for cleaning a drain? You've got a blocked drain, but you don't want to fix it. You want to see if you can blame it on the water board if you're in the UK. So you run that search, and immediately you can see from what the SERPs are telling us, there's the answer box, who's responsible for repairing drains and sewers, and then a people also ask box. So this is a knowledge-based search and very little direct commercial intent, I would argue, at this stage. Let's go a step deeper. You find that actually you've got to sort it out. So what are your next searches likely to be? Well, how do you unblock a drain? Drain rods, drain unblocker. You're kind of working out those self-serve problems. Well, let's look at the SERPs for that. They become much more how-to-y. Naturally, you see videos, you see people also ask. There's a couple of suggestions there. And then when you progress a bit further, even down to drain rods, they're even giving you the shopping ads that helps facilitate you unblocking them yourself. With Screwfix, we'll do that too. I would argue that the vast majority of people that try to unblock their drains probably fail because it's not a particularly fun job. So the next search will inevitably be drain clearance near me, or maybe drain unblocking in location. So you're trying to find someone to help you. And these searches are completely different again. These are just finding you local businesses, people who are nearby to your location that will come and sort that out for you now, which makes sense. But the key kind of question when you're looking at keyword selection is, all of these key terms will have potentially come up in the same piece of keyword research, but how many different pages do you need to cover this funnel? Even if the only commercial intent that you want to capture is those looking for the drain unblocking service right at the bottom. Now, arguably, your competition will sit at those 2 bottom stages most often. They'll stay kind of close to where the money-making terms are, and they will probably have a guide and then a service page if you're kind of lucky. But what I kind of often argue and the benefit of this process goes is, well, it helps you get at the top of this keyword funnel and produce the 2, 3, 4, 5 potential pieces of content you need to guide that user throughout their buying journey, gets you in front of the competition first. And if you want to pair that with retargeting and other kind of forms of marketing, you can kind of fill your own funnel in that sense. Now, in terms of mapping keyword intent via the customer's point of journey, that can be quite simple. But one of the other things when we talk about intent is we can measure the changes in intent over time. And that's whether searchers' behaviors changes or Google's sophistication in relaying that within search results gets better, hopefully, presumably. So let's look at another search result. This one is for bad credit mortgages, another one that I've had to work with in the past. And what we can actually do, if I just play this out through 3 years, you can see that the actual makeup of these searches changes pretty much over time. So this is charted in Systrix, a tool that I use quite frequently. The important thing really, though, if you look along the top line, in 2017, there were 4 mortgage brokers. In 2018, it dropped to 2. In 2019, dropped to 1. And they were getting replaced slowly by comparison sites, by publishers, and even credit checkers. Now, what we're actually observing there, sort of albeit sped up, is a specialist product becoming mainstream and commoditized. Google is seeing that other people can provide these results well. So how do you rank for this, for example, if you're the mortgage broker that needs to fight its way upstream in there? Well, one of the quickest ways that I'd look at that is look at the kind of content that's ranking. And for this particular search, that's really, really simple. If you just do Command F or Control F question mark, you can see that there are 22 questions on that page, which is actually quite a high amount for a standard SERP. You usually don't see a lot of that. What it tells you is, despite the fact the query itself isn't a question, Google is ranking a lot of questions in there, albeit which is a brand is a question. So that maybe inflates that. So there are other different ways to help ID intent without looking at a SERP by SERP level, because that can be incredibly time consuming. One that I've used recently that is particularly cool, a tool called PyDatametrics, they have a feature called SERP Radar, which is very neat in places, well, in more than one place, but this is particularly cool because you chuck in your keyword set, and then it'll run this kind of 40,000 foot view that for this particular group, 96.4% of these results have shopping ads. What does that tell you about that search? It's highly commercial. People in searching around this cluster of key terms want to buy stuff almost every time, which is really important information. Likewise, 85% of these keywords have people also ask boxes. So there's still a large amount of ambiguity or people searching around to find the detail they want. And potentially more interesting still is video. 50% of them have video results. So these could be how-to guides, could be unboxings, but it shows there is an appetite for video here. Now, if I was playing that numbers game on this kind of group of SERPs, I know how I'd want to be able to talk to my customer. And it's not just via SEO or non-paid methods. There are a couple of different channels we would utilize there. Now, if we kind of combine the two things, in terms of mapping SERP intent change, but then that bird's eye view, we can do this over time as well. Again, back into Systrix, although Pi has a similar feature. We can actually look at an entire, like a SERP makeup for any list of kind of key terms. Scrape the SERPs, click update, and we can look at, okay, well, what is the makeup? What's the percentage of SERPs that have AdWords boxes, image boxes, knowledge graphs, etc.? And if you take these snapshots over time, you will understand quite quickly how things are changing. Are the top competitors dropping in and out? Is the proportion of ads increasing or decreasing, for example? And if you measure this closely and with enough intent yourself, you can actually unlock some key kind of shifts and changes in the space that other people may not have. Realistically, the killer question here, and what I hope some of you are asking at home, is actually, how do you do this meaningfully at scale? Great question. Unfortunately, not one that I'm going to have time to run through today, but this is when we get back to complicating things. And here's some of the tools that I use to kind of help facilitate this process in a number of ways. But actually, what I want you to do first, before going away and doing any of that, is really inspecting each SERP feature and each link yourself, and just get the feel for identifying intent by using SERP features, especially if it's something that you don't do or something you haven't done for a long time. As I said, we SEOs like to get stuck in tools. I'm telling you to kind of get your head out of them for this moment. So just to wrap up, kind of key takeaways here. I think the biggest point, if you just take one thing away, is just look what's in front of you when you're searching for these key queries around a client. But ultimately, your job as an SEO is to match the content to the SERP intent, and then your customers, obviously, from that. Use this kind of data and this kind of research to go upstream from the competition and get entrenched before they even get a look in, because that will benefit you in the long term. But really take the time to understand the nuance in the queries, because I've just shown you 1 or 2 examples. It really does make a difference. And then finally, number 5, continue to review the SERPs over time, because intent does change, maybe 3 months, but at least every 6 months, I'd take a good look at this and get your hands dirty and really kind of get in there and see what it is that you need to be doing. And that is slightly hurricane kind of view tour of that, but hopefully that's all there.
Well, that was great. Thank you, Chris. No, you were on time. Perfect. Yeah. So, and I just want to say hello to everyone that's joined as well since. We have Lily here. Hi. Hill, sorry, Web Creations, Marit, and Monse, Steve, Orit.
Was Steve behaving?
He is behaving. Hello. Evening from the Deutschland. Hello. Yeah, so you mentioned his tool in there as well. Yes, I wanted to, let's see if we have any comments already from the audience. So, Orit, it's absolutely key to look at the SERPs and understand intent before you optimize a page and repeat every few months. Is a great reminder. Thanks, Chris. Yes, that is true. Hi, Steve. So yeah, he's appreciating your mention. I guess for me, I was just asking the question of how you can automate it, but obviously you said then you have to go back and make it more complicated.
Yeah, I've sidestepped that one.
Okay.
No, I mean a number of the tools that I mentioned are working on it and are starting to work in that. So identifying queries by intent. So again, sort of name dropping statistics. They do kind of classify keywords via intent groups to a greater or lesser extent. And I know that a few others are bringing in AI to help you do that. So you don't have to be a wizard with Python yourself. So it's coming. I don't think I can say who and how because I might get slap wrist. But
you might slap wrist if you say what, sorry?
I said I might get a slap wrist if I tell you which tools are working on it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. Does anyone else have any questions?
At least people are agreeing with me. That's nice.
They're all agreeing. That's great.
Lily, I don't know where the Rubik's Cubes come from, I'm afraid. That was just an example.
Yeah, she would like to get her hands on that.
Cool. I'm going to take that as a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to know that. Perfect. Okay, well, we're just waiting for Victoria to join, and then Lily will be on, who is in the audience. She will be on talking about her very interesting topic. I won't spoil it. I'll wait for her to come in, but we'll just give a couple minutes for Victoria. I've just sent her a message. But in the meantime, if anyone else has any questions, please add them in the chat. Oh, Steve saying, please spill the beans. Oh, Victoria. Oh, Victoria. Okay. Can you log in? I just sent you a stream. You're in StreamYard. I just sent you one. By your into your Twitter account. Just sent you one by Twitter. So Victoria is here in the audience, and she'll be, coming into our new room. Because what originally I did is I put it all in a one long stream, and then I thought, well, I don't know if YouTube can really handle that. So I then broke it down into 4 different sessions. So that's perhaps on my technical issue today. Everyone has a technical issue when you're doing online events, and that was mine. So
if you keep them into single figures for a live stream, you're doing well.
If I can do what, sorry?
Keep the technical issues into single figures for a live stream, you're doing well.
Yeah, no, it was just a couple. Oh, and here is Victoria. I'm just adding you. Hello, Victoria. Sorry about the technical issue.
How are you?
Good, thank you. Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Muy bien.
Great. Well, Chris, you're more than welcome to stay, as I said to the other guests, or you can go into the audience. But Victoria can then talk about her insightful presentation. Thanks very much, Chris, for sharing.
Heckle, but thanks.
Okay. Where will you have your slides? Will you be tweeting them out?
Yeah, why not? Let's go for it.
Okay, very good, excellent. And please, everyone, follow at TurnDigi. Chris will be tagging that as well.
Will be. Good stuff. Thank you for having me. Catch you later, everyone.
Thank you, Chris. Bye. And Victoria she is the head of SEO at a company called Dojono. I actually met Victoria nearly 2 years ago now at Search Metrics. There was an event, our Search Metrics Summer Summit, taking place in Tobacco Docks. Yeah, and actually in May. wasn't
It was the peak of my career. I picked too early, actually.
You picked what?
It was the peak of my career because I picked too early. So that was the first time I spoke. I spoke at a conference. Yeah, and we met.
That's the first time she spoke. And also then you spoke at Search London a couple of times. And again, which is the last one was in November. And you're also a stand-up comedian. And I've seen you. You've come to Barcelona as well.
Yes, actually, the most important thing that you have done for me, I think, is to tell me you should start stand-up. And I did. So the problem with that, it was that I felt very successful and as an SEO speaker. Now I feel like a very mediocre comedian. But
okay,
what can we do about it?
Comedy, I think, is subjective. I think you're funny. I think there's some people that are comedian and they're really rubbish, but they just talk. Yeah, I wasn't able to see one of your shows yet, but I'm sure you'll have. Maybe you'll have some online one.
After lockdown, we'll do everything.
Yeah, everything. So I'll pass it over to Victoria, who is going to be talking to us about content to make you outrank your competition.
Yeah.
Over to you, Victoria.
I'm going to drive my presentation.
You're going to drive, yes, drive. Be the master in control. So you just click on share screen, and then I add your presentation to the deck or to the stream.
Okay, so I don't know what to do. Okay, share stream. I will try not to fuck this up. I have 2 monitors. It's great that we are doing all of this live. Okay, we will do our best. So considering I'm in the UK where people don't even judge their prime minister, I think we will do fine.
We'll do very fine.
Anything can happen during lockdown. We are just doing our best. So
let's see at least in the UK, you guys can go out. So in Spain, it's a bit. Hopefully, we'll be able to go out on Saturday. Ooh, add to your stream. Ooh, there we go.
So we are doing this in a very improvised way. This is because of me, obviously, not Joe. Joe has everything perfect, ready to go. It's just me. But the people that know me know what they can expect from me. So, what is happening?
Press present, or just go to view, and then
the problem. I know what's the problem. Sorry, my computer is it's not working, and you know why it's not working?
Everyone has a technical issue.
To present, I don't know what's happening. For fuck's sake! Come on.
No, go to file. You can go to a view on the left.
File.
And then go to
because you see that it's not working, that I'm touching the mouse has just got broken. This is so good. And I invited them. Oh no, I know what is happening. Wait 1 second.
Please hold, and Victoria sorts out the technical issue.
The funny thing is that I told everybody at the office, guys, come check me out. I'm the head of SEO now. I know everything. I cannot even share a screen. Great. I know what is happening.
It's there. Have no fear. It is there. Okay, so I will leave Victoria over to talk about the content to make you outrank your competition. And everyone, feel free to add your questions in the chat as well. Over to you, Victoria.
Great, thank you. So, guys, you can imagine the level of the presentation if you have seen me, not even being able to share my screen. So, just to set the expectations here. Well, I'm Victoria Olsina. Thank you for inviting me. Joe, this is a great initiative and I'm very excited to be here today. I'll be speaking about how to make your content about your competition. I don't like bio slides. They're a bit of a, wanker slide, but here I am. I'm going to take this opportunity to say that I'm the head of SEO and I'm just bragging. And the most important thing about me is that I moved to London because I saw Spice Girls in 1997 at the age of 11. It has been very disappointing to find out that only 2 Spice Girls live in London at the moment. And that's Emma Bunton and Mel C. in case you were wondering which of them were. Now, let's jump into the competition. So, into the competition. What competition? What is she talking about? Into the presentation. So this is an idea I have been working on for a couple of weeks. I wanted to create sort of a template to increase the maximum visibility of our pages across the financial sector as a vertical. So this is what I have come up with. These are the elements in my template. Content length, anchor links, heading as questions from people also ask, answers optimized for feature snippet, and schema, which in this case I'll be going a bit deeper into FAQs and how-tos. So these are the 5 elements that my template has, and these are the elements that will make my SERP real estate stand out of the crowd. So let's start. Content length, I remember the time. Okay, this has just stopped working. How lucky are we? Great. Can only get better.
You can, but we can still see it. Its content length from 400 to 500 words is okay. To 2,000
what happened after?
To 2,000 words should be the minimum.
Yeah, but it froze. I have 4 points here. What happened? All right, page unresponsive, guys. Okay, today everything that could go wrong will go wrong. It's the market law. Great. So let's try to do this again. Oh God.
What I will try to do in the meantime is I have your slides.
A joke, please, while I fix this.
Yeah.
Let me do this while we wait. What's your favorite Spice Girl, Joe?
Well, I did like Sporty Spice. I really like Sporty Spice. She was very good.
Yeah.
She was funny.
Why don't we ask the audience what's their favorite Spice Girl as I try to fix this presentation.
Yeah, Monse, what's your favorite Spice Girl? Or Lily?
Nicole, my friend Nicole is in the call. I know who is her friend. Who's my favorite Spice Girl? It's Baby.
Baby Spice.
Yeah, she said she was coming, but I'm not checking YouTube because imagine if I'm making this mess with only two screens open. Imagine if I open YouTube. Okay, guys, sorry about this.
Well, you can just make that more as just maximize it. That's fine.
Yeah, let's pretend that everything's going great.
This is fine, Victoria. It's all part of these technical issues that people get with the live stream.
Yeah.
So, Victoria Beckham is funny. Lily says Lily likes Victoria Beckham.
I know. I have a set especially written about Victoria Beckham, which I'm not going, and it's highly inappropriate for an SEO conference. So let's continue with content length. Such an interesting topic. The world of SEO, mind-blowing. Such an interesting topic. So when I was young and I started building websites, I used to tell my clients that they should have 400 or 500 words in their content. Obviously, this is just an indication of how old I am now, where this has, now we see generally on content brief, I brief 1,500 words, 2,000 words. So obviously this depends on the industry and how competitive the keyword is. And I will show I will share some tips after at the end to tell you what's the best way to get content length and other bits and pieces. So the idea behind content length is that one article should address topics in all angles. And Google sees content length as depth. The more you write, the more in-depth it is, and the better the content. And I have also seen a correlation between the pages ranking for featured snippets and the pages with the longest content. So yeah, write a lot. I have the feeling that this will stop being the case soon because you see a lot of pages that are just produced for the sake of content. very lengthy, unnecessary lengthy, but so far this is how Google has made the rules. What can you say against a monopoly? Nothing. So it's just what they say, guys. So let's move forward to anchor links, jump links. I'm sure you have all seen these pages, these kind of pages that have a content table on the top or some icons that you click on them and you go to the part of the page where you actually want to go. And this is good for your UX because you let the user choose what they are going to read. And this is good for SEO because the anchor link send a signal for featured snippets. And then we see on the search engine result page that Google can add your anchor links, like this sort of breadcrumb kind of search result. So that's why you should be using this at the beginning of your text, at the beginning of your page, because it's very likely that it's a long page, as I said before, considering how important content length is. Now, moving forward, because we live in the times of feature snippets, most of the headings that you have should have to be questions from people also ask, because that's the way that Google will pull. If it's obvious that it's a question, it's easier for Google to pull it. And how is it obvious? Well, use the interrogation mark. I know that a lot of British people don't do this, or worse, a lot of British people speak like if every statement was a question. You know this. People speak like if everything was a question. Yeah, a lot of people, especially in the north. This is what I have realized after 4 years of living here. Now, if we use the heading from people also ask, it's good to use questions if you're writing headings from people also ask. Okay, so and this will help Google bots to identify your information fast. And it's not rocket science either, right? So here we have two examples of some pages I'm working on. And yeah, I move industries. So I don't have blockchain examples anymore if you were waiting for that. I'm saying this because Joe has seen this presentation like 5 times, but now I changed the title because I started being censored. This presentation was called Basic SEO Beach, and I started being censored on events because apparently I don't have to say the word beach. Anyway, now coming back to the presentation, I thought it was amusing for millennials. Millennials love that presentation, but it's fine. Now it's called content to outrank your competition. But anyway, let's go back to this topic. If you don't have questions from people also ask, you might want to start asking, what are the basic questions your content page should ask? For example, what is the target keyword? What are the benefits as advantage for me? How can I get this? And why you against the competition? Now, especially benefits and advantages, I have seen, and I have an example of the previous company. Here we see 2 feature snippets saying what are the benefits that make emphasis in what are the advantages or benefits of a product or service, which in here is blockchain in the public sector. What is blockchain, guys? I don't know. I worked 2 years in blockchain, never understood, but it doesn't matter. Here I am with the feature snippets. And so about all of these main questions, what is and what are the benefits? What is it in for me?
Okay, just on that one though, can we just say, so basically to appear in feature snippets for this previous company you were working on, you were looking around like a target keyword, looking at the benefits. You were looking about why people would use it versus their competitors. Yeah. And then you redid the content to answer those questions. Is that correct?
Yeah, I start every content brief by telling people that these are the basic questions, and then let's go to the question from people also ask and see what else people are looking for, right? So maybe you say, so why didn't you include this before the next slide? Before the previous slide? Well, I don't know. It's part of these presentations are new. That's why. But thank you for clarifying. So if we go to the previous slide again, let's do like it didn't happen. Here we have what are startup loans, for example, and who funds it. So what is the keyword? What is the main query here? What are startup loans? Why do I work now for loans? Because I like money. In which you're wondering, and I'm the daughter of a loan shark as well. So what can you expect from me, guys? Not much. Doing the best I can. Now, how are we going to answer the questions that we included before? So we are going to answer them in the way that that Google would pick them for feature snippets. So we know that feature snippets are a paragraph, a list, or a table. So we have to use these elements in our text. So the first thing we do is we answer with a one paragraph crisp and short answer, 40 to 50 words, and then we use a list or a table. It's very important that we include a relevant image and we optimize it. When I say optimize it, we don't have to say, this happened actually this morning. And we are talking about startup loans, as we did in the previous example. Let's call the images something similar, not people in a business meeting having coffee, people at a co-working space. It has to be startup loans, startup finance, how to get a startup loan. This should be like the alt text of your image. Otherwise, Google will include your competitors' images, and your boss will ask you, why is our competitor on our feature snippet? And you will look dumb, like it happened this morning. So avoid this embarrassment. And the last tip is to have similar questions on the same page. Yep. And all right. So I changed the slides while you were doing this. I changed the slide without telling you, and that's why I did it so well that this last point is the same as point number 2. So just avoid looking dumb, avoid being like this person. Anyway, let's move forward. Here we have a beautiful example of a short paragraph and then a list. It's very easy. Anybody can do it. You don't need developer help. Now, if you have all the backlinks and the longest content and best content in the world, and you're not optimizing for feature snippets, you will not be on position 0. So this is the easiest thing and the most cost-effective thing you can do right now. And you can do it without any help. Now, schema. All SEO love to talk about schema, and I never do. So I'm going to do that now. Now, in the financial services, as an industry, and in many other industries, this is relevant because if you are doing schema tagging here, which is, this example is from Compare the Market, I think, yep. And we do the tagging, and then we can get a premium sort of real estate space on the search engine result page. We have a longer, a bigger result, and that's what we want. We don't want to be in position 1 anymore. We want to have the biggest space as possible on the search engine result page. So if you do the FAQ schema tagging, you would it would show up there, and it's great. I have seen at least 3 schemas, 3 questions that appear on search engine result page, and it's huge. It's almost double the size as your original results. So it's really good, and it's very underutilized, at least on financial services. And we can do the same thing for how-tos. We have an accordion view and the carousel view. So how-tos is a step-by-step instructions, and it comes it's default on Yoast SEO. And actually, I think that's questions are also default on Yoast SEO. So user WordPress is really easy to implement. And in case you don't have, you're not using WordPress or you don't have developer help, what you can do is to do a numbered list of steps and try to rank for a list snippet instead. So it will not be exactly the same, but you are still getting you might still get the feature snippet. Yeah. So, and this is mainly what I want, what I really want with Google, get more SERP real estate, have bigger results. And let's move forward. Is this stuck again? No. Again, this is underutilized and a great opportunity to improve the size of your result page, of your results. Now, obviously, you can use other schema, and it depends on your business and the kind of website you're dealing with. You can use organization, events, person, recipes, book. It depends on your industry. So ideally, you have mapped all of the schema that your competitors are using, and you are incorporating that to your results. And also, you're trying to get ahead of them by using FAQs and how-tos. And my two final slides are two tips for content optimization. I use this a lot with my team. The SEMrush Writing Assistant is a Chrome plugin, or you can use it also natively from SEMrush, which is a tool that most people use. I use Ahrefs too, but Ahrefs, I find it very useful for ranking and tracking, but not for content. For content, my go-to tool is SEMrush. So here you see the native tool, and you see how the backlinks, readability, content length that we spoke about extensively before, and semantically related keywords. But also, if you install the Chrome plugin, you and your team, especially the content team, have access to all of these insights from the same tool they're using to write the content. So it will tell you, include this keyword, this paragraph are too long, and what's your overall score. So it's a very useful tool, and we write most of our content that way. That's mostly for new content. Now, if you have existing content and you want to compare similar metrics that, as I have mentioned before, like keyword usage, backlinks, content length, readability, you can use the SEMrush on-page SEO checker. So here we have in this example, we see business loans for women, and we see what's our content length against the top 10 competitors, how many referring domains, video usage, readability, markups, and it's telling you if there is things you need to incorporate. This is just a quick screenshot, but you can go into each of these many reports, and they're very insightful. So those are two tools that most SEO have in hand that we use a lot, and we find a lot of value in those. And I think that's my last slide, and this is the end of the tutorial. Yeah, I hope this.
Oh, it's such an exaggeration. Thank you very much, Victoria. We do have a question from Nicole. Nicole asks, do we need to add a schema tag to frequently asked questions content for it to work in Google?
Yeah, you do.
Yes, okay. So the frequently asked question tag, so there are some plugins that you can use, of course, for that, and then apply it to that page. Obviously,
my former colleague, and she misses me. That's why she's asking this.
That's nice. I'm glad. Here's another one from Kevin. Do you use SERP for SEO? I've been hearing many SEOs talking about how it helps with content optimization.
Which one? Sorry.
SERP for SEO.
SERP.
Surfer, like to hacer surf. SURFER. Surf for SEO.
No, I don't. Sorry, I don't know what it is. Do I look dumb again for the 100th time presentation?
No, I haven't been using that.
I haven't used it. Sorry, I don't.
I have a question. So sometimes some CMSs, well, they're just not CMSs that you can add plugins to. Oh, Nicole is saying, I do miss you, Victoria. Oh, that's so nice. Oh. So sorry, back to CMSs. Sometimes you don't have one where you can add different plugins. So you basically have to hard code things in. And obviously you can't always ask for dev time. So my question is, how long did it take you to rank for the featured snippets when you were just adding the lists or writing that short and concise paragraph?
Yeah, you asked this on Tuesday too, at your event, didn't you?
Did I?
No, or your friend. It's fine. Okay. No, somebody from there. I do so many events, guys.
Oh, it's so popular, Victoria. She's referring to the Tea Time SEO event at Authoritas.
Because
anyway,
invites me to them. Otherwise, I'm useless to book events on my own. So that's a good question. Actually, I started a new job and I need to impress my bosses. So I said, guys, feature snippets, feature snippet, feature snippet. So that was the first piece, big piece of work that we did. And we started this about 2 weeks ago. And we are seeing 5 pages. We optimize around 10 pages and 5 of them already have feature snippets. And actually, we optimized a page that went live 2 days ago, and now it went from position, the startup loans page, actually, that I saw. Startup loans was on position 5 for several keywords, and now it's on position 1 with feature snippet. In 24 hours from being published with the new optimizations. And
24 hours.
Yeah, this optimization was just lists and paragraphs, nothing else, no developers. So again, as I have said before, you can have the best content and you can have the best backlinks, but if you are not optimizing for feature snippets, you're not going to get there. And it's really easy to optimize. Use a paragraph and a list and a table. So we also have very quick for other pages, it took 2 or 3 days. This was 24 hours. So it's pretty fast. Also, I would like to clarify that all of, for example, startup loans, the startup loans, yeah, that's for the UK. That's on position 5, right? So it's ranking well. So everything that is from position 1 to 10, I would say it's a quick turnaround, between 1 and 2 weeks. I was a bit surprised to see that this was in 24 hours, but it was a great result to brag about on Slack this morning. And also, all of this quick thing that we did in a month, now our visibility has increased 10% according to SEMrush in a month, and that's huge. So do feature snippets. Do as Victoria.
Well, we will be adding that. I've certainly been working on that myself. And we have Lily that will be joining us in a moment to share her tips as well. Just saying that we have 2 aspects of the room. So the broadcast studio is here where me and Victoria are. I'm just trying to find Lily so she can join. And then we also, of course, have the audience where people can add the comments and everything. So we'll have Lily give the final presentation for the day. In the meantime, does anyone else have some questions for Victoria? For the day. In the meantime, does anyone else have some questions for Victoria? Okay, great. Oh, perfect. You're there, Lily. Thank you very much, Victoria, for joining us today.
Thank you, Joe.
Do you have the slides available on your Twitter account?
I can actually do that now. I'm so prepared as a speaker that I didn't even do that. So I will do that now, and you can check my slides, Nicole.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Oh, we have one other question from Kevin. He said, Google mentioned that your site won't appear twice on these SERPs.
Yeah.
If you have a feature snippet, is it better than ranking 1 in the SERPs?
I would say so. This happened for another example. We had halal loans, and it was ranking 1st, but it didn't had a feature snippet, and there has been a huge increase in visibility when we got that snippet. So it's definitely something I would recommend doing.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Victoria. You can stay around in the broadcast studio where we have Lily talk about some very useful insights, or you can be busy preparing your presentation for other talks, but I'm not sure. But we'll hand it over to Lily to give her talk for the last one of the day. Thank you very much, Victoria.
Thank you for inviting me. Bye.
No problem. And I just wanted to introduce Lily. So I was first introduced to Lily through Becky Sims at Reflect Digital. I was working on a project. It was about accessibility and voice search. And Lily actually helped me with some of the questions for that. And I gave a little bit of a presentation about that at Search Y in Paris. But really, Lily and I have this survey that we would like everyone to take part of. It's around, is voice search really accessible for all? And Lily is an account executive for a digital marketing agency. And today we're talking about accessibility online, why bother and what to do. I'll pass over to you now, Lily, and I'll invite your presentation to the screen.
Okay.
Thank you.
So hello. I have renamed the presentation to Access Denied, the Disabled Guide to Accessibility Online. So I am Lily and I am disabled with 2 exclamation marks. I am deaf, not that you can really tell, and I have chronic pain and mental health issues, but at the moment, who doesn't? I also have professional experience in talking about accessibility and trying to make sure that social media and website content is accessible for most disabilities. I'm also quite an active part of the disabled community, so I keep learning about kind of how conflicts between disabilities kind of work and how to make sure that we mitigate those issues. So a lot of people have asked me, why would we bother making it accessible? Because disabled people don't have money and we don't really care about them, and it's only a very little amount of the population. Disabled people actually make up 25% of the population, and disabled people do have money. A lot of disabled people are like me, who are disabled but are able to work or are able to earn money or do something, which then means they have some disposable income. It's also really important to remember that accessibility doesn't just help disabled people, but it helps everybody. So if you've got subtitles on your video on social media, then that means that you can access it on a bus when you haven't got your headphones, or you can, if your first language isn't English, you might find it easier to read the subtitles rather than just try and listen for the words that you know. It also improves SEO. So if you have alt tags on your pictures, then that means that Google Images is able to identify what's in your image, and then you rank higher. It also allows voice technology to work more effectively. If your Google knows exactly what's on your web pages, then it means that you can then feature in voice search and as well as normal searches. It also helps to train search engines. So if you can describe your images effectively, then search engines are able to learn what is inside images and can identify it better. So for instance, if we had a picture of, say, for me, you would describe me as a white woman with red hair and some makeup on, and then that would mean that people who are visually impaired know exactly what I look like. You already know what I look like if you see me, and then Google also knows what I look like. So it's all kind of cohesive. I want to show you this website. Some people will have seen this before, but it's horrible, but it's a very good visual representation of what it's like to navigate the internet if you are disabled. So a lot of disabled people struggle with the fact that people don't have alt tags on their images, so they don't add descriptions to their images, so nobody knows what's in their picture. You also have people navigating with the keyboard only, so you can tab through websites, and if it doesn't make any sense, then people who maybe are visually impaired and are using screen readers and are tabbing through websites, it means that it's just a mess and it means nothing to them. So I actually used a screen reader on this website, which I know is horrific. And I want you to have a look and see what is going on, because you have to try and work out where you are on the page. I've also subtitled it, so everyone can access it. And yeah, there we go.
Chromabox spoken feedback is ready. Events site archive from the 8th of April 2010. Link. Enter events. Link. Asterisk tilde pink links to. Link. Why? Our designers tilde asterisk. Link. Point click. Link.
So with this, you can see that the problem is that you have no idea what you're doing on the website, what's happening, where the links go, and what you're supposed to be doing. So you can't even see it visually, but you can't also use it in an accessibility way either. So what I would say is that you should probably describe where your links are going and what's going on, and you need to make sure that your tabbing is in an order. So that would be more of a developing role. And you have to make sure that it makes sense. So when you're testing your website, you have to try and use screen readers and other tools which disabled people use to make sure that it all makes sense, because no matter how good it looks on the front, it might be horrendous when you're using other tools. So I've got some more tips. So when you're at the beginning of a project, you should probably try and design all your projects with accessibility in mind from the very beginning, because if you don't have it at every single step, so from your design stage to your development stage to your the conception, then you aren't going to be able to make sure that the infrastructure is accessible. So if you're using a CMS and you can't add in image descriptions, then that means that you can't make it accessible from the back end. You have to then have it coded in, which is obviously is very inconvenient for everybody involved. I would also suggest that you hire disabled people. I mean, I know this is my own agenda because I need to be hired, but if you hire disabled people, you know exactly that they have the nuanced ideas and understanding of what it's like to be disabled, have different ideas and think out the box. But it also means that we have life experience, whereas abled people can't understand exactly what it's like, regardless of how many simulations they've watched or how many people they know. It is not the same as the lived experience. I would also suggest that when you begin testing, that you would use extensions on Chrome, such as Axe, Accessibility Insights for Web, Wave, Funkify, Web Disability Stimulator, and No Coffee. So the first three, Axe, Accessibility Insights for Web, and Wave, are all, they all monitor whether or not you are adhering to the WCAG, which are the Web Consortium Accessibility Guidelines. And these are really good guidelines which show you how you should be accessible and what you should be doing. So you should definitely have a look at that and create a standard checklist, which then you use these extensions to test all of these. So you get your main issues fixed and sorted before you start doing your manual testing. Funkify, Web Disability Stimulator, and No Coffee are all simulations. So Funkify shows you what it's like if you've got a variety of disabilities, and No Coffee shows you exactly what it's like if you are visually impaired. But the important thing is to know that this isn't exact science. You have to kind of take it with a pinch of salt. If you can't use your website or your social media content or anything using these extensions, then it's not accessible. Like I said, you should create a standard checklist. So when you're going through and testing your website, you should know what you're looking for, what you're testing, and just make sure that you kind of follow it. So you'll have a standard checklist for most things like go live, or your process for making sure that things are compliant to your SEO standards or whatever it is that you specialize in, but you should also have a checklist for this. I would recommend that you always include subtitles, transcripts, and image descriptions. Those are the really key things that help most people. So if you can't do subtitles or transcripts because you don't have the time or the energy or whatever the problem is, then you can always use speech to text services. I like to use Otter AI, and what it does is it all compiles it all into one document, and it's a website, and then you can download the transcript as a PDF or Word document, but make sure that the PDF is readable. So, I mean, try and see if you can use a screen reader on it, because some PDFs just say that it's an image rather than reading out the words. If you download the document as an SRT file after editing it and making sure it's all right, then it means that you can put it into most video editing software, and then you have your subtitles matched with time. You can also add subtitles on YouTube, which I did with my video, which I did have to have a hearing person check it, but I did it mostly right. And image descriptions, if you can't but do it on the place itself, then add it as a caption, or if you're on social media, make sure that you have an extra tweet or a comment or something that just says image description, and then describe the key parts of the image and why you're sharing it. I think I did that super quickly, so add me on LinkedIn.
Thank you very much, Lily. That was great. You had a lot of different tips. I just mentioned a few comments in the chat. Very surprised that so many sites don't cater to the disabled community. 25% of the population are disabled. And there's a high percentage of people that are disabled that become disabled also later on in life. I didn't think that, oh, if someone is disabled, they don't have money. But I know from what we talked about before, you said that some people have asked you to do, work and things like that for free because it's in your benefit to help them with maybe a piece of research about maybe, I don't know, being disabled, or I don't know, helping design a website. What would you say to try and educate people really about this? I mean, Sherry also touched upon diversity as well in her presentation earlier today.
Yeah, so I still have rent to pay and things to do with my time and my life. So my life isn't dedicated to just being disabled. So it's really important if you're using my specialist knowledge, regardless of how I've attained it. So even though it's my life experience rather than experience that I've deliberately gone out and got, you're still paying, you're still receiving expert opinions and advice. You should pay accordingly. Yeah.
And that website that you showed us, yeah, that was really bad. Do you have a stat of how many bad websites there are like that out there on the internet?
I know that when I was looking at council websites, I think nearly 80% of them were inaccessible, even though they are legally obliged to be accessible. But I think most websites are inaccessible, yeah.
What about the RNIB?
I don't remember.
Okay. That's pretty shocking about that. So does anyone else have any questions? Because I would have a lot. So I'll just leave it for a moment if anybody has any other questions for Lily about trying to make sure that your website is obviously optimized for everyone. While they are writing, I'm going to ask another question then. So in terms of, you know, the lack of accessibility that there is for some of these websites, how can people make sure that their websites are optimized for everyone?
So I would definitely start by looking at the WCAG. I want to say guidelines afterwards, even though the G means guidelines, but
the WCAG.
Yeah, so it's created by the W3C, who are kind of like in charge of the internet. Yeah. And these are the guidelines that are universally acknowledged to be the standard at which you should make sure that all websites and all digital content is accessible. So you can go through it and you can decide which level of accessibility you want to be at. And there are a lot of kind of shorter versions of this through blogs, and making sure that you just kind of read through it and understand it and why you're doing those things. Because I think if you don't understand why you're doing it or who it helps, then you're less motivated to do it. But yeah, definitely create a checklist and use the WCAG to make sure that everything is accessible, and then use extensions and any kind of tools to make sure that it works as you intend. So if you look at a website just kind of face on and you don't use kind of like a voice technology or a screen reader. So I used Vox, which is a Chrome extension, and a lot of visually impaired people use it. And
Vox Chrome extension. Okay. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, so if you just kind of make sure that if you try and stimulate how a disabled person might use your website, then you can see where your problems lie. So if you're tabbing through and then you get stuck in a tab loop in your footer, which means that you just can't get out without using a mouse, then you know that you've messed up somewhere. So then you need to kind of work that out. So it's kind of should be part of your testing, along with, have I done my meta descriptions? Have I done my titles and H1s and whatever?
Okay, thank you. And we have one from Nick. He asked, is there a way to make background images and video accessible?
If your background image doesn't mean anything, you can just mark it as decorative. So,
okay.
But if you've got a video which needs to be kind of seen, then you should add audio description and make sure that you can have subtitles and audio descriptions, and or maybe a transcript beneath, or it can just have a caption that just says, this is what this video shows. So then people can still access it. But if it's not important, like if it's just kind of an addition that isn't necessary, then you can just mark it as decorative.
Okay, thank you. And I have a question just about images in presentations. So obviously we've seen a lot of presentations today. We see a lot of presentations everywhere. And some people put images behind the text. Maybe they'll fade out the image, but that is quite hard to read, isn't it? when people do that. So avoid it. Always have nice contrast colors.
Yes.
Correct. Good. Well, thank you very much, Lily, for your time. I appreciate you. You wanted to talk after work, and thank you everyone else for taking the time to be with us today. This is our final session for Turn Digi. We will be having another session in a few weeks' time. I will let you know when that is, and please get in touch with Lily if you have any other questions. Lily, will you share your slides on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
And also, we're still taking surveys, people to take part in the survey. So, as I said earlier, this is a survey to see if voice search is really helping those that need it most. Is voice search accessible to all or not? And ideally, we'd like to get quite a few hundred respondents, but obviously it's quite difficult to get that. So we'll be tweeting that out afterwards as well. Thank you all very much for coming today and for being part of Turn Digi, the online event where we have 18 speakers coming in from 8 different countries and 3 continents. And it's a platform to help those promote themselves as we're not able to meet in person right now. I'll just end the broadcast, but you can stay if you want, Lily. I'm just ending it so it stops on YouTube.